Someone you trusted looked you dead in the eyes, smiled at you, and then quietly buried the knife so deep you didn't even feel it at first. You gave loyalty. You gave presence. You gave pieces of yourself that you will never get back. And what did they do? They replaced you. Like you were a seat at a table, not a human being who bled for them. And right now, something inside you is burning. Good. Let it burn. But do not let it burn you down. Let it burn away every weak, naive, trusting part of you that allowed this to happen. Because this video is not therapy. This is not a place for healing circles and soft affirmations. This is a strategic briefing. And by the time you reach the end, you will not want revenge. You will become something far worse for them. Someone who no longer cares. Let's begin. The moment you were discarded. Let's not pretend this didn't hurt. It did. It hit you in a place you didn't even know was exposed. One day you were somebody's priority, and the next day you were an afterthought, edited out of their story like you never mattered. You replayed every moment, every conversation, every sign you missed. And the worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. The worst part was realizing they had already left long before they actually walked away. They kept you close, just long enough to line up your replacement. That is not love. That is not friendship. That is resource management. And you were the resource that expired. Now here is where most people collapse. They beg. They chase. They send paragraphs at 2 in the morning trying to remind someone of their worth. And every single word they send is another brick in their own prison. Stop. Machiavelli understood something that most people spend their entire lives ignoring. Emotion is information, not instruction. Just because you feel pain does not mean you must act on it. The pain is telling you something. It is telling you that you invested in a losing position. It is telling you that your judgment was compromised by attachment. It is telling you that you ignored the signs because the comfort was more addictive than the truth. But here is the part no one is going to tell you, except me. You were not destroyed. You were released. Read that again in your mind. You were released. The cage didn't break. It opened. And everything you're feeling right now, the anger, the confusion, the disbelief, that is not weakness. That is fuel. But fuel without direction is just a fire that burns the person holding it. So from this moment forward, we are going to direct that fire with precision, with patience, and with power. Your education starts now. Why they replaced you, and why it doesn't matter. You are sitting there wondering what they have that you don't. You are comparing yourself to your replacement, studying their face, their life, their presence, trying to decode what made them more worthy. Stop it. You are asking the wrong question. The question is not, what does your replacement have? The question is, what does the person who replaced you lack? And the answer is depth. People who replace others quickly are not upgrading. They are restocking. There is a difference. An upgrade requires standards, patience, and the ability to be alone long enough to choose wisely. Restocking is panic. It is the desperate act of someone who cannot sit with themselves in an empty room. Machiavelli wrote that the lion cannot protect himself from traps and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. The person who betrayed you is neither lion nor fox. They are a parasite, someone who draws their identity, their comfort, their sense of self from whoever is standing next to them. You were not replaced because you were not enough. You were replaced because you were too much. Your depth made them uncomfortable. Your realness exposed their shallowness. And rather than rise to meet you, they found someone who would sink with them. That is not your loss. That is your confirmation. Now here is the dark psychology behind it. People who replace quickly are running from guilt. Your presence, even in memory, reminds them of what they did. So they flood that space with someone new to dilute the weight of their own betrayal. It is not affection, it is anesthesia. And anesthesia always wears off. When it does, they will wake up and the wound they tried to cover will still be open, except now you will be long gone, and that absence will be louder than anything you could ever say. The power of controlled silence is a trap. The moment you speak, you lose is a trap. The moment you speak, you lose. The moment you post, you lose. The moment you let anyone see the wound, you hand them the very weapon they need to justify what they did. They will call you bitter. They will call you obsessed. They will rewrite history and paint you as the problem, and the world will believe them because the loudest voice after a betrayal always looks like the weakest one. Machiavelli knew that the unseen threat is the most dangerous threat. A king who announces his war plans loses the war before it begins. But a king who disappears into silence, he becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is the highest form of psychological power. When you go silent, something shifts in the mind of the person who wronged you. They expected a reaction. They prepared for it. They had responses loaded, defenses built, allies briefed. But you gave them nothing. And nothing is terrifying. Silence tells them you are not broken. Silence tells them you are calculating. Silence tells them that whatever is coming, they will not see it until it is already too late. This is not about being passive. This is about being surgical. Every word you do not say is a word they cannot use against you. Every emotion you do not display is a card they cannot read. You become a closed book in a room full of people who desperately want to know the ending. Do not give them a single page. Let them wonder. Let them check your name in the dark. Let them lose sleep trying to decode your stillness. Your silence is not empty, it is loaded. Kill the old version of yourself. There is a version of you that needs to die tonight, not tomorrow, not next week, tonight. The version that trusted blindly. The version that gave without keeping score. The version that believed loyalty was a contract when it was only ever a suggestion. That version of you was not weak. Let me be clear about that. That version was simply unfinished. It operated on hope instead of evidence. It loved the potential in people rather than the pattern in people. And that is a fatal flaw in a world that rewards strategy over sincerity. Machiavelli said it plainly. The one who wishes to be good in everything is bound to come to ruin among so many who are not good. You were good, and it cost you. So now it is time to update the software. Not to become cruel, not to become heartless, but to become selective in a way that makes your old self unrecognizable. Think of this as a funeral. You are burying the man who begged for attention he had already earned. You are burying the man who explained himself to people who had already decided not to listen. You are burying the man who stayed in rooms where his absence would not have caused a single question. That man served his purpose. Honor him, thank him, and then lower him into the ground without looking back. The Stoics understood that attachment to identity is the root of suffering. You are not who you were yesterday, and the person who betrayed you betrayed a ghost, a version that no longer exists the moment you decide it doesn't. This is your resurrection. But understand this clearly, resurrection requires death first. You cannot carry the old wounds into the new life. Drop them here. Drop the need for closure. Drop the need to be understood. Drop the need for an apology that is never coming. Walk forward with nothing but clarity and cold, calculated intention. Build in the dark. From this moment forward, nobody gets to see your next move. Not your friends, not your family, not the people who still talk to the person who betrayed you. You go underground, completely. Machiavelli understood that the greatest victories in history were not won on the battlefield. They were won in the planning rooms nobody knew existed. The generals who conquered empires did not announce their strategies to the village square. They moved in shadow. They built in silence. And by the time the enemy realized what was happening, the war was already over. That is your blueprint now. You are going to wake up earlier than everyone around you. You are going to work when they are sleeping. You are going to read when they are scrolling. You are going to invest in your mind, your body, your finances, and your skills with the intensity of someone who has absolutely nothing left to lose, because emotionally you don't. And that is your greatest advantage right now. The person who betrayed you thinks you are somewhere falling apart. They are comfortable in that assumption. They are sleeping peacefully because they believe they left behind a broken version of you. Let them sleep. Every single day they are not thinking about you is a day you are gaining ground they cannot see. This is the law of silent construction. The tallest buildings spend the longest time underground before anyone sees a single floor rise. You are in your foundation season. It is not glamorous. Nobody will applaud you for it. Nobody will post about your discipline at 5 in the morning, and that is exactly the point. Visibility is for the finished product. Right now, you are raw material being forged under pressure, so let them look away. Let them forget about you, because the next time they hear your name, it will not be a whisper. It will be a thunderclap they never saw coming. Master the art of emotional armor. Let me tell you something that will change the way you move through every room for the rest of your life. The most powerful person in any situation is not the loudest. It is not the strongest. It is not even the smartest. It is the one who is emotionally unreachable. That is your next evolution. You are going to learn the art of emotional armor. Not numbness, not suppression, but selection. There is a difference between a man who feels nothing and a man who chooses what deserves his feeling. The first is damaged, the second is dangerous. Machiavelli observed that men are so simple and so subject to present needs that he who wishes to deceive will never fail to find willing victims. You were a willing victim because your emotions were an open market. Anyone could walk in, take what they wanted, and leave without paying. That era is over. From now on, your emotions operate behind a gate. And the key to that gate is no longer handed out freely. It is earned through time, consistency, and proof, not promises, not words, not potential, proof. Dark psychology teaches us that the person who controls their emotional responses controls every interaction they enter. When someone insults you and you do not flinch, they lose power. When someone provokes you and you respond with calm indifference, they become destabilized. When someone expects you to break and you simply stare through them like glass, they begin to question everything they thought they knew about you. That is dominance without aggression. That is authority without volume. You are not building walls because you are afraid. You are building a fortress because you finally understand your own value. And a man who knows his value does not argue with people who do not see it. He simply removes access and lets the absence teach the lesson his words never could. Understand the game. They're playing. Now that your emotions are behind armor, it is time to open your eyes to the game that was played on you. Because it was a game, and it had rules you were never told about. The person who betrayed you did not act on impulse. They followed a pattern, a psychological pattern that is as old as human manipulation itself. First, they devalued you slowly. So slowly, you did not even notice. A missed call here, a cold response there. A subtle shift in energy that made you question yourself instead of questioning them. That was intentional. They needed you to feel smaller, so their exit would feel justified. Then came the triangulation. They introduced your replacement into the picture just enough to create doubt, just enough to make you feel like you were competing for a position you already held. That was not accidental. That was architecture. They built a bridge to someone else using the materials they stole from your confidence. And finally, the discard. Clean, swift, almost rehearsed. Because it was. By the time they walked away, they had already rewritten the narrative. In their version, you were the problem. You were too much or not enough, depending on which story earned them more sympathy. Machiavelli warned that men judge more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone sees what you appear to be, but few feel what you really are. They crafted an appearance of innocence while burying the truth beneath layers of charm and selective memory. But here is your power now. You see the chessboard, you see the patterns, and a man who sees the chessboard can never again be used as a pawn. Every manipulator relies on one thing above all else: your ignorance of the game. The moment you understand the mechanics of devaluation, triangulation, and discard, no one will ever execute that sequence on you again. You are no longer blind. You are the one watching. Become the person they can't forget. Here is where the real shift begins. You are no longer playing defense. You are no longer healing. You are no longer surviving. You are engineering a version of yourself so elevated, so refined, so undeniably powerful that your very existence becomes a haunting presence in the mind of every person who ever underestimated you. This is not about revenge. Revenge is loud and temporary. This is about becoming permanent. The kind of permanent that sits in someone's memory at 3 in the morning when their new life is not working out the way they thought it would. Machiavelli said that men desire novelty to such an extent that those who are doing well wish for change as much as those who are doing badly. The person who replaced you was their novelty. But novelty fades. It always does. And when the excitement disappears and the reality of their choice settles like dust on every surface of their life, they will think of you. Not because you called, not because you posted something strategic, but because you became someone they can no longer reach. And nothing haunts a person more than someone they once had full access to, who now exists behind a wall they cannot climb. Your body becomes sharper. Your finances become stronger. Your mind becomes a weapon they could not handle even when they had you. Your social circle becomes curated, powerful, intentional. Every area of your life begins to radiate a frequency that they will feel without ever seeing you directly. This is the law of silent elevation. You do not chase closure. You become the closure they will never get. You do not seek validation from the people who discarded you. You become the standard they will spend years trying to reach with someone else and failing. Let your growth be so loud that it echoes through every room they enter. You are no longer a memory. You are a benchmark they will never clear. The law of inevitable return. Let me remove the mysticism from karma because too many people treat it like some cosmic fairy tale. Karma is not magic. Karma is not the universe keeping score on a golden chalkboard. Karma is mathematics. It is the inevitable consequence of removing a high-value asset from your life and expecting no deficit. When someone betrays and replaces a person of depth, loyalty, and substance, they do not escape the cost. They simply delay it. And delayed consequences are always more devastating than immediate ones because they arrive when the person has already convinced themselves they got away with it. Machiavelli observed that the injury we do to a man must be such that we need not fear his vengeance. The person who betrayed you did not follow this law. They injured you, but they did not destroy you, and that is their greatest miscalculation, because you are still here, you are still breathing, and you are becoming something they did not account for in their selfish equation. Here is what dark psychology reveals about the betrayer's timeline. In the beginning, they feel liberated. They feel like they made the right call. The novelty of their new situation floods their brain with dopamine, and they mistake that chemical rush for confirmation. But chemistry is temporary. It always fades, and when it does, they are left standing in the middle of a choice they made with the worst version of themselves. That is when the return begins. They start to notice small things. The way their replacement does not listen the way you did. The way conversations feel thinner, less meaningful, less real. The way they have to perform constantly because the new person does not know them the way you knew them. And slowly, like water seeping through a cracked foundation, regret moves in. Not loud, not dramatic, just constant. They will not always admit it. Their pride will build walls around the truth. But in the quiet moments, in the gaps between distractions. Your ghost will sit in the chair across from them and say nothing, and that nothing will be deafening. You do not need to engineer this. You do not need to force it. Time is your most loyal enforcer. All you need to do is keep building, keep rising, and let the distance between who you are becoming and who they chose instead do the talking. The math will always correct itself. Always. Your new code of power. This is where it ends, not the pain that will fade on its own schedule, but the old operating system, the old rules, the old version of you that walked into rooms hoping to be chosen instead of walking in, knowing that his presence alone was the privilege. That version is gone, and what stands in its place now is something the world is not ready for. You are no longer a man who was betrayed. You are a man who was awakened by betrayal. There is a difference so vast between those two identities that the people who knew you before will not recognize the man who walks forward from this moment. Machiavelli left behind a blueprint that most people are too afraid to read honestly. It says that the world does not reward the good. It rewards the strategic. It does not protect the loyal. It protects the aware. And it does not favor the emotional. It favors the controlled. You now operate on a different frequency. You do not beg. You do not chase. You do not explain yourself to people who have already decided to misunderstand you. You move in silence. You build in shadow. You protect your energy the way a king protects his throne, not with aggression, but with access control. No one gets close without proving they deserve the ground they are standing on. This is your new code. Loyalty is no longer given. It is earned and audited. Trust is no longer free. It is invested with collateral. Love is no longer blind. It sees everything and still chooses consciously. And your peace is no longer negotiable. It is the most expensive thing you own, and no one on this earth can afford to disturb it without your permission. The person who betrayed you started a war they did not know they were declaring, not a war of words or actions, a war of outcomes. And you are going to win that war, not by fighting them, but by becoming so far above them that the altitude alone makes them dizzy. Every morning you open your eyes from this point forward, you are not just waking up. You are reporting for duty, duty to yourself, duty to the future you are constructing with your bare hands while the rest of the world sleeps. You did not deserve what happened to you, but you deserve everything that is about to happen for you, and it is coming, not because of luck, not because of karma in some spiritual sense, but because you decided, right here, right now, that you will never again be the easiest person in the room to leave. Now, if this monologue hit something deep inside you, I want you to drop one phrase in the comments. Type the words, "I am the storm they didn't see coming." Let that be your declaration. Let the comment section become a wall of men and women who refuse to stay broken. And if this video gave you even one moment of clarity, 1 second of strength you did not have before you pressed play, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another briefing. Because this is not just content, this is your new code of power, and we are just getting started.